Welcome to Earth, a Love Story. I'm your host, Robin Lassiter. I recently mentioned in a post on Instagram that I was going to do a quick and dirty solo episode before I left for my 10-day retreat. Well, it turns out that when I take almost any time away from screens, however small, all kinds of downloads and information come rushing in. My dreams this week have been crazy and illuminating and wild and really awesome. I'm really happy that that's returned. You'd think that I would learn to turn away from my fucking screens. Anyway, this will not be a quick and dirty episode after all. Maybe the dirty part is that I won't edit it a lot before I put it out, but it won't be quick. I have a lot to say. And what wants to come through is this framework that I've been trying to lay out in my mind for quite a while and have been struggling with how to do that. I want to explain some ideas that have emerged between me and my close group of friends lately, maybe over the past 6 months or a year. And there's some shorthand that's been emerging, and I want to explain that. I want to talk about these concepts that are coming up and the way that my friends and I are framing what we feel is going on in the world right now and what's going on in our relationships in the collective of us, what's going on in the inside and the outside. So the shorthand, some of them are moving from evolution through suffering to evolution through joy, which if you've read my book, you may remember is something that the 4 Who Are One told me. They also told me to learn to turn the wheel. Also, first, fuck you. That one didn't come from the 4 Who Are One, but it's a good one. We use it a lot. First, fuck you. I'll explain it. Touching bottom. Something called primordial time. And there are others, but I think those are the ones I want to focus on today. Something is emerging, and it feels really vital for me to transmit. It's the same kind of urgency that I always feel, the same kind of pressure to do the thing, even if I don't know what the thing is. And it's always hard because I really don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Lately, though, I kind of have been thinking, so what? Neither does anyone else. We don't know until we know. And now is not the time to play small, my friends. Those of us who have the capacity to do so need to step into our gifts, I think. So again, for those of you who read or listened to my book, Earth, a Love Story, you might remember that the 4 Who Are One, the beings who have seemingly interacted with me throughout my entire life, reminded me of a project I apparently chose before I incarnated on this planet. And I mean, take all of that with a grain of salt. I don't know if it's literal. I don't know if I really am from somewhere else, if I'm the fucking alien, but it's a story that functions well in my life, especially if I don't try to collapse it down into a solid certainty. So I'm kind of just going with it. Anyway, they told me to learn to turn the wheel. They told me to help move the earth into a new paradigm. Actually, hold on. I'm just going to quote from my book. This is from chapter 1, where I'm recounting a between-life soul regression, where I find myself on a distant planet, remembering. We are like a hive, a collective, all with the same purpose, which is to lend our energy towards the service of others. We still have individual goals and experiences, but those exist underneath the umbrella of our collective role as helpers. There's an endless variety of projects to choose from, and we focus on other worlds and other realms since ours is in pretty good shape. It feels like we've come to an equilibrium here. We have it sorted out, so we concentrate our efforts farther afield. I remember that I looked into the sphere at some point before I came to Earth, and I chose a project. I stood right here and sorted through different options, pushing away amoebic blobs of floating gold that were actually fully formed blueprints of tasks. I sort of scrolled through them, flicking aside those that weren't interesting to me, looking for something I really wanted to work on. This is what I came across, and this is what I chose. Incarnate on Earth to assist in moving it from a paradigm of evolution through suffering to a paradigm of evolution through joy and creativity. Learn to turn the wheel deliberately. Change the program from a zero-sum game to a non-zero-sum game. No big deal. Okay, that's the excerpt from my book. And first of all, as hard as it was to hear that message, and as hard as it's been to integrate and make sense of and accept as some sort of reality or truth, even if I can't exactly pin it down, it has become my life's work. This is the core and central theme of everything that I do and teach. I wish it was pithier. I wish I could create a course with a catchy, marketable title. But no, they give me this mouthful of a mission instead. And by the way, sorry, as an aside, I've mentioned the Embodied Mystic course I'm teaching this year, dates to be determined. And many of you have signed up to be on the waiting list, which is awesome. I'm really excited. But I Googled Embodied Mystic, and it's a trademark name for someone else's work. So I'm changing the name. I'm secretly hoping that the Four Who Are One give me something catchy. If not, it will be called, I don't know, something about evolution through suffering to evolution through joy. Or maybe I'll call it the Bridge Collective. I don't know. Stay tuned. But it's still going to happen. Thank you for being patient. Anyway, second of all, the beings, the Four Who Are One, whoever they are. And in fact, any of the messages that seem to come from up above and far away all have the same kind of tone. Just do the thing, they say. Help change the paradigm on earth, they say. Don't worry about money or what people think of you, they say. The world is going to end. Hurry up, do something about it. You're 5, get on it. And if you've been listening to this podcast, as you know, I've struggled with these kind of messages for a long time. I tried to listen. I tried to raise my vibration and think happy thoughts and not think about the things I didn't want to attract and not worry about what people thought and not get caught up in, things like money and survival. And it just really didn't work for me. It wasn't effective. Turns out the more I tried to shove down and push away, the bigger and scarier my shadow grew. Eventually, I had to stop going up and out, and I had to start coming down and in. And that's fine. I now think of these messages as things that are given to me that I will then spend a lifetime working with, and they will unfold and spiral through time, and I'll understand them more and more and at different levels. And that's how it's meant to be and maybe designed. And part of the deal is that I had to learn not to bypass. I had to learn to go down and in. And what I still find extraordinary and was totally unexpected is that that piece of wisdom came to me not from the Four Who Are One, not from up above and far away. It came to me through her, the earth, the goddess, the divine mother, Inanna and Ereshkigal, the feminine. It came up through my body, through the soles of my feet. And she pulled me down into the mud and the blood of suffering on this planet and held me there until I stopped trying to squirm away, until I surrendered to her and to life here on earth as it is. I stopped trying to escape suffering, stopped trying to skip over the hard parts to get to the good parts. Turns out the price of entry into these realms of meaning and mystical communication and purpose on this planet in this often absurd life is the ability to hold paradox. So both and, suffering and joy, galactic ET light beings, and the divine feminine goddess Earth Mother herself. Up and out and down and in. She taught me that I had to go down to go up. It's just intrinsic in me. It's an old habit that I keep trying to find certainty in one thing or the other. So for a while, I tried to find ultimate truth in just going down and in. And that's what the goddess had shown me. She taught me that I had to go down to go up. That there's paradox here as well. That we don't go down to the underworld and stay there. We have to keep moving, and then something new happens, and eventually we come up and out of the underworld because it is a great round. Reality is, turns out. Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, the one who's been holding all of the pain and suffering, is also called the Great Round. She's the Great Round, the uncried cry. And just like life isn't complete without her, life is also not complete without the upper world, without heaven and earth, without the realm of Inanna. It's around, both of them have to be together. So I'm figuring it out. I'm learning. I'm getting it. Anyway, what she taught me was that I had to go back and retrieve any abandoned and wounded parts of myself and hold them at the center while they healed. And that if I didn't do that, it was like I had one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake at the same time. I wasn't really going anywhere. My nervous system was shot, and I couldn't seem to mobilize in any direction. She showed me how to center the most vulnerable parts of myself and how to help them evolve. How to get the most stuck parts unstuck through unconditional love. And you've heard me say it before, I couldn't hate myself into becoming somebody I could love. I couldn't tell myself, buck up. Look how good you have it compared to other people. Like your suffering is so small compared to the suffering of other people. Stop whining and just do the thing. I couldn't nervous system hack, cold shower, 10x myself into action. I had to let go and go slow. Slowly, back and back to my core wound, my inner child who was holding all of the hard things. And when I found her there in the dark, untrusting and angry and alone, she taught me something about dealing with the soul level stuff. The directives that come from on high. First, she said, fuck you. First, fuck you means that before we do anything, we center the vulnerable part, the human part. Before I could become actualized and happy and joyful and take action towards the things that I knew would ultimately serve me and my soul self, I had to say fuck you to all of that. I had to claim my humanness and decide I would not abandon that part of myself. I purposefully conflate the inner child and the body, the nervous system. They all just want to stay safe. They all just want protection. And I am going to do the things that the glowing light beings, the aliens, the four who are one told me to do. I want to do those things. It's my life mission. But first, fuck you. First, fuck you leads to touching bottom, to surrendering, to feeling the feelings as deeply as we can. And once we touch bottom, we can push up from there, and the next cycle starts. We can come up and out of the underworld. But we can't skip over any part of it. And I tell you what we can't do, for reals. We can't pretend to touch bottom. We can't pretend to feel the feelings because we know that it leads to the next part of the journey. The inner child, the body, the nervous system smells bullshit a mile away. And if you're just doing some like head patting on the inner child going, there, it's okay, feel better now, be quiet, stop crying so that we can move on to the next thing, the inner child will throw a mug against the wall. Like it won't be pretty. She will say first, fuck you. And it's good. It's good that she says that. It's a teaching. Go down, touch bottom, feel the feelings. The paradox here is that the fastest way to go is slow. The fastest way out is through. The only way out is through. And so, as many of us know, like somatics and nervous system work have become a big deal in the past few years. They're all becoming buzzwords, trauma and somatics and embodiment and the nervous system and all of that. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. We need it. The watered down version that shows up on Instagram, right, is that we can reset our nervous system and then we don't have to feel hard things. We can do some intense breathing practice that causes an emotional release, or we can take psychedelics or something like that. And both of those things are great. Like there's a time and a place for both of those things. But the promise of the quick fix is that we can kind of reset and then we don't have to feel the hard things. And it can be quick and then we're done. It's like a one and done kind of thing. And unfortunately, that's not it at all. Somatics work is slow going. It's about building capacity to feel emotion and sensation that could have been trapped in the body since childhood. It's about not overwhelming our systems, not re-traumatizing ourselves. It's about slowly growing our capacity so that when a big sensation or emotion does arise, we can feel it. We have space to feel it without dissociating. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, no shade to dissociation. It's one of the ways we cope with being on this planet. If we're constantly dissociated, a little half in and half out of the body, which was my experience, I was always like, it just felt so unsafe to be inside the body. I was always just a little outside of it. Makes it really easy, or maybe not really easy, but easier to have out-of-body experiences and to tap into these other states of consciousness that don't seem to reside directly in the physical body. But it also I'll speak for myself. It limited my emotional range and shut me off from a huge, vast, rich arena of feeling and sensation and rapture and aliveness. That's not what it's about. It's not about only feeling good things or having a small capacity for feeling. It's about growing our capacity so that we can actually feel more. And oftentimes when we do somatics work, it gets worse before it gets better, or it feels worse before it feels better. It's hard work. It's just fucking hard work. I don't know what to say. It's beautiful work. It's, to me, completely necessary work, especially when we get to a point where we can think about our thoughts and feel about our feelings. Like we have some sort of awareness of ourselves, like, okay, I understand I have this childhood wound and I understand that's why I act like, who's that comedian? I can't remember her name, but she says something like a raccoon trapped in a garbage bag when somebody confronts us. Like, okay, I get it. That's why I act that way. I understand. And that's wonderful and necessary, but that understanding alone for me didn't fix it. It didn't get me out of my body's stuck reactions. My body was just waiting for danger all the time. Hypervigilance, fear, fight or flight, freeze. Like I think I was really good at all of them. Dissociation, all of it. So it's not about getting still and static and like flatlining and only feeling vaguely pleasant things. It's about expanding our range of feeling, expanding our resilience. It's about getting dysregulated and then regulated again. Just like in relationship where it's like rupture and repair. There's a background frequency that arrives where we can experience these things and it doesn't blow the system apart. Whether in relationships with rupture and repair or whether in somatics and embodiment with feeling all of these big feelings. It's about riding the waves instead of being crushed beneath them. And eventually we can feel all of the past things. Like we feel everything. We kind of clean out or clear out all of this stuck sensation that's been in the body for a really long time. And we do it slowly and safely. And then the emotions and sensations start to flow and we start to feel what it's like to be alive in the moment. The example that I use with clients is that there's a dam and behind it is this enormous lake. And the lake is all the things that we haven't felt, but that are still in the body waiting to be felt, waiting to be witnessed and seen and felt for healing and release. And if we just blow open the dam and it all comes rushing through, it's way outside of our capacity and it can actually re-traumatize us and it's too difficult. But if we can put a little crack at the top of the dam, like wear down a little spot so that a trickle of water starts to come over. and we start to feel things a little bit at a time, that eventually all the water will come out of the lake, and then what is left is a stream or a river, and it's an experience of flowing with life, and we have the capacity for it. We can experience it, we can hold it, and it becomes rapturous instead of terrifying. That was the promise when I started doing somatics, and like, spoiler, it works. It's just hard work, but it does work. So eventually, we feel what it's like to feel alive, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And instead of it being too much, we can take it. We can surf the waves. And actually, somatics and the nervous system, all of that work is a whole podcast episode. I can't fully get into it all here. But I do think that there's a reason why all of that, why embodiment and somatics and the nervous system are becoming known in the culture, why we're talking about it, why we're doing this work. And I think that we've been collectively exploring this because, and here's the really edgy thing that wants to be said, and the whole reason that I wanted to do this podcast episode. We're exploring this because we need to expand our capacity to feel joy, to feel bliss. It's time now for the high vibrational thing, the thing that I had to like reel away from and say, fuck you to. First fuck you, but now it's like, because of endless fucking paradox that never can be collapsed down into a single thing, it's not that the high vibe thing wasn't true or doesn't work, it's just the timing was wrong. Because the world needs us to hold a high frequency, a different frequency. Or maybe this is just me. And honestly, if you are struggling, if you're suffering, if you feel like the sensations and emotions that are threatening to be felt are completely overwhelming, then this probably won't resonate for you. And that's fine. Don't worry about it, because first, fuck you. Like, first, take care of the inner child. That has to happen first. It just doesn't work without it. And I have to say this other part. This is what really wants to come through. That those of us who are ready for it, like, it's time to start feeling joy. And it's like, what? In this economy? In this war-torn world? Joy? Are you serious? I know. But it's not just joy, it's all the feelings, but we've been down in the suffering for a while, so now we have to feel the other side of it, joy. Because what's coming is going to require that we do something different as humans than we've done in the past. And that's hold both. And it starts with grief. This whole process starts with grief, with suffering, with rage, with agony, with pain. It starts with those more obvious things that we've shoved down into the underworld, into the shadows. And slowly over time, over years, we start to be able to feel again. We find ourselves, just me, crumpled on the floor crying, not sure if we'll ever get up. And then maybe we find ourselves dancing or rocking or humming or breathing ourselves through an intensity of pain that we couldn't have handled a year ago. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in my clients. It's definitely a thing. We can grow capacity. And eventually we find that we don't have a lot of pent-up grief and rage and pain anymore. We touch bottom. We get like the lake empties out. And that's when, because nothing ever stays still in creation. Nothing ever, everything changes, everything moves and shifts. So that's when, out of the blue, totally destabilizing, joy starts to creep in. And the crazy thing is that joy and hope and bliss feel as terrifying as grief and rage and pain felt just a little while ago. But that's actually what we've been building capacity for, is both the joy, the grief, both and. For this duality, like this paradox, what? Can I have another word besides fucking paradox? Whatever. To describe this thing that I'm talking about, I think about an experience I had in meditation once where I went into the underworld of my own soft belly, down and down, and I called forth my own divine feminine archetype, like who I was going to evolve into. I called forth my wisest and most alive and compassionate future self, specifically the feminine part of me. And I don't know what I expected, but I was shocked to find that she was warm and loving and wry, and she had like sparkly, twinkly eyes and liquid limbs and an easy laugh. And I asked her, how are you like this? How can you be joyful and easy and laughing with all of the suffering that happens in the world? Because you see, I had finally touched bottom. I understood the gift in the pain. I understood the gift in the grief that leads to relief, the gateway of grief that leads to relief. And I didn't want to give it up. I thought, fuck, I don't want to abandon myself anymore. Like, how can that be possible without abandoning the suffering parts? And she grinned and leaned back and kind of lifted her arms and showed me this velvet black throne that she was sitting on. And she said, "Child, I sit on a throne of suffering." And I was like, what the fuck? And I was astonished, but I closed my mouth and I went to sit at her feet because I did understand what she meant. Joy and grief are not separate. Bliss and suffering are not separate things. We don't go anywhere. If anything transcends, it all comes up together. We don't abandon anything. We don't leave the suffering. It's all here. It's all here. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. It's here. That's my mantra. Okay, so that's that, right? That's first fuck you, touching bottom. And then this is something else. This is another kind of crazy thing that's been happening. But as I've been able to start to embody joy and ease and presence, really, like as the old stuff has been cleared out and my body is living in the present instead of the past, right? Like I'm not bracing for the blow. I'm not bracing for the horrible thing to happen. I'm living in the moment, and in the moment, there's no tiger in the dome with me. My life is not in danger right this minute. And so my body is kind of relaxed and in the present moment. And so as I've been able to, mostly, like, let's not get crazy, but mostly let go of that hypervigilance and bracing for the worst, I've found myself in a new reality. It's wild. It's like the air gets kind of foggy and shimmery and the edges become soft. And I find myself in a space that feels holy and alive and full of potential. It's like an actual space. And I'm seeing it all with my actual eyeballs. And this space has some other qualities too. One, it's round. It is round like the roundness of my eyeballs experiencing the visual field. And it is round like the horizon line that is always containing us no matter where we are on the planet. So it's like these two circles, a vertical circle and a horizontal circle. And together they kind of make a sphere. And yeah, anyway, it's a circle for sure, which makes me understand a little bit why I've always preferred living in round homes, round spaces. It just feels better. It feels more natural. And also another quality to this space and experience is that it feels timeless, like it's the only thing that actually exists. Like whatever is happening in that space is true nature, and everything else is my thought about a thing, not the thing itself. It's really wild. And it could just be another way of saying presence. It just could be that I'm experiencing presence. I don't know. But my friend and I have coined this space primordial time. And I think we were inspired to that by both reading David Abram's book, The Spell of the Sensuous, which is a fantastic book. And I'm getting into a second book called Becoming Animal. They're both amazing. The experience of this space and the words primordial time just make me feel, I don't know, you know those power words when you come across them? You're just like, oh yeah. Like another one is the long self or long time, something that connects us outside of our single lifetime and into this other place. That's also primordial time. Yeah, it's just good words. I love it. So the experience of this primordial time is happening more and more lately. And it seems that it's a space of pure potentiality. It happens when I'm with this really close friend, and she's an in real life friend. She's an in the flesh friend, which is just so fucking precious after 3 years or whatever on Zoom. And when this primordial time experience comes, we both stop and take note of it. We can both see it. It's palpable. It's literally visible to both of us. It's like this shared field, and we access it fully through our senses, through our like physical body senses. And another place that it happens for me is in nature. Sometimes also in the dome. When I'm in the dome by myself, I look around and I'm like, holy shit, this is reality. I don't know, something shifts and I'm not with my thoughts or feelings. If it's like I'm not removed from life, something clicks and the edges become fuzzy and suddenly I am in real life. I'm real and life is real and it's just like, holy fucking shit. Is that what it's like to be fully human and fully alive? Is that some sort of primordial humanness in our physical human bodies, not just always up in our heads and minds the whole time? I don't know. I'm still exploring it. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's profound. It's grace. It's wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up soon. All of this is why I need to write a second book. I'm trying to work on it. It's not really happening, but I know me. I know I'll write it. I'll get to it. This is actually part of the process to just kind of talk it through and figure it all out. So before I wrap it up, I do want to talk about moving from evolution through suffering to evolution through joy and creativity, like the 4 Who Are One told me to do. This, along with bees and the honeycomb matrix, is probably the most commented on part of my work. Like people reach out to me because of this, because they get it and they feel it and they experience it and they're like, yep. And I'm like, yep. And it's great. So this I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, evolution through suffering to evolution through joy and creativity. And it's a big fucking subject, just like all of these are. But I at least want to lay it out here in this episode. So first of all, evolution through suffering works. And it's not bad or wrong. Evolution through suffering fucking works. It's excruciatingly slow and it's hard, but it does work. It's what we've been doing here on the planet for a really long time. It's evolution over lifetimes. It's evolution in a single lifetime, but through suffering. So like a great example, one of my big examples is getting sober. And I remember when I was really suffering, when I was still drinking and just really fucking suffering, I remember this download of information that came through that was like, you can do this if you want. There's no good or bad. You can certainly have this experience if you want to have this experience, but you don't have to. And I don't know, I guess it's a little pithy, but the somewhat pithy phrase that they gave me was, how hard does it have to get? How bad do you have to feel? It's like, it's kind of up to you. So it finally got bad enough and I stopped doing it. And that's evolution through suffering. Things get hard and eventually we change. And here's another example that is from my current life, which is that I look at my fucking phone way too much. Anybody else? Just me? Is it just me? My addict tendencies are always looking for a way to get a quick hit, and our phones are designed to deliver that. It is intentional. People spend millions of dollars, corporations spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to figure out how to track and capture our attention. They do. It's well known. It's not even a conspiracy theory. That's just what we're living through, is this attempt to capture all of our attention all the time. I even read somewhere a while back that they're doing research into how to get advertising into our dreams. And I think they fucking figured it out, because have you guys gone to bed in the past year and in the middle of the night you're dreaming and some stupid fucking TikTok song comes on and plays in your head? No, again, just me. Anyway. So they're designed for that. And also, I'm not pushing off my own responsibility. I'm just saying, like, empathy for all of us, because people are working really hard to do exactly what we're doing, like to get us to do exactly what we're doing with our phones. So empathy, compassion. And so anyway, it's just really easy to turn to the phone for a quick hit of dopamine, and then over and over and over again. And that's why I'm doing this digital detox. And I am doing it. I know that I'm in front of a screen right now, and I'm going to be working on this episode. And I've put out a couple of things, but I really am pulling back and easing into this full digital detox that will happen as I get closer and closer to this 10-day retreat, in which there will be no screens, which will be wonderful. But I'm having to remind my brain what it's like to have to work a bit for dopamine. Anyway, back to evolution through suffering. I will be on my phone until every drop of dopamine is squeezed out of my poor, tired brain, and I feel lifeless and dry-eyed and hollow. And eventually, it will get so uncomfortable that I'll make a change. I will turn off the phone. I will get up and stock my porch with firewood, which for some reason is the very best dopamine reset that I've ever experienced. Firewood is the best. I don't know why, but it is. And the little and big moments when I become so uncomfortable that I decide to do something else, that's evolution through suffering. And we all do it all the time. We do it multiple times a day if we're lucky, or we get stuck in a place and it just becomes hell for a while. We're just in a hell realm. And then eventually it becomes so uncomfortable that we break out of it. And a lot of times the way that we break out of it is grace, just fucking grace. Something helps us, we have a moment of clarity. That's why when like addicts, alcoholics, if they come to me for help at all, if we ever talk about that in client sessions or anything like that, there's not really, in my opinion, a whole lot to do about it until that moment of clarity comes, until like the suffering is enough so that something changes and there's a moment of clarity. And then if you get that moment of clarity, this is my best advice for addiction. If a moment of clarity comes, grab it with both fucking hands and do something different. Just take it and run, because they don't come very often and we get acclimated to suffering. So the suffering gets more and more and more in between the moments of clarity. Anyway, tangents. Okay, so that's evolution through suffering. Evolution through joy is something else, and I am still discovering it. I don't really have my head fully wrapped around it. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I know that it has to do with joy and with bliss and with doing things that we know are good for us, even though they're harder than the things that are easier and there's more suffering. It's like intelligent suffering instead of dumb suffering. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I think it has to do with turning towards the hard things because we know that they're good for us. Instead of waiting until we're suffering so much, we decide we have to make a change because we just can't stand it anymore. And again, like, here's the paradox. Like, that's where cold showers or life hacks or going for a run. I used to be a runner and I'm being called back to it again. And it's so hard and I hate it. But that's the thing. It's like those things are evolution through joy and creativity because we think that they're the hard thing, but they're actually the thing that brings us bliss and joy. And once we've cleared out a lot of the past stuff, a lot of the shadow stuff, a lot of the things that were keeping the body fixed and scared and braced and hypervigilant, and we're just constantly trying to manage like our narrow range of experience in a narrow range of capacity, which, you know, trauma, this is just what happens. There's no blame, shame, none of that. Once that stuff gets cleared out, once there's a river instead of a lake behind a dam, we can start choosing things that are good for us. We can start choosing and cultivating joy, choosing and cultivating the experience of bliss in the body, choosing, and I still have such a hard time saying this, choosing the high vibrational thing, leaning closer to non-duality. The trick to all of this that makes it possible is to continue to sit on the throne of suffering. Evolution through joy cannot be achieved by trying to get out of anything. I can't grasp or cling or wish or scramble my way out of suffering into evolution through joy. I had that realization. I had that realization today, actually, during a meditation. Going on this retreat, like it's a big deal. I'm a little nervous. And I'm watching my mind running around like a scared rabbit looking for safety. Can I get it here? Can I get it here? Can I get it here? Where can I go? Who's going to rescue me? What can I do? I need that hit. I need a dopamine hit. I need something. I need a distraction. Because I'm afraid. Like part of me is afraid. And so I sat with that in meditation and I looked at it. And just looking at it, I was like, oh, I'm terrified. I'm scrambling. I'm grasping. And that quote that I love so much that's in my book from Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche that says, oh God, I don't remember the exact quote. Something like, the bad news is we're falling through the air, nothing to hold on to, nothing to stop us, nothing to grasp onto. And the good news is there's no ground. And that's kind of that's kind of like the somatic realization I got to. It's like, this is as safe as we're going to get. And I need the high view. I need the high vibration. I need the soul stuff to remind me that both life and death are actually safe. And what I'm doing here is just ushering this animal body through it. I don't know. All of the things still apply though. Like all of the things that happen through evolution, through suffering, that happen, all the realizations that I've had, all the things still apply, which is first, fuck you, which leads to touching bottom, which I hope is like a common experience, will lead to primordial time. If you've had that experience, like if you're one of my clients and you work with me and you know what the fuck I'm talking about, please let me know, because that would be very affirming to be like, okay, yep, that's the path, primordial time. Coming through evolution through suffering, then into evolution through joy, and something new, something novel, something that happens like every moment becomes a new moment. We're not stuck. We're flowing with life. We become the space that life herself moves through. And if the goddess, the planet, the feminine, the lady, whoever, however we want to call her, the great cosmic mother, the great mother, the divine feminine, if she wants anything from me, she wants me to feel life herself moving through me. Like as an act of creation and evolution. Abso-fucking-lutely. And I'm in service to her. So that's why I'm going, all right, we'll see if we can figure this out. Yeah. So doing all this because the earth herself and her people and creatures, and it feels like reality itself needs us to have the capacity to feel the rapture of being alive. It's how we learn to turn the wheel so that something different can happen. And this, I think I'm talking to the Bridge Collective. Like, I think that those of you who understand what I'm talking about, like if any of this sinks in and you're like, yeah, I get it, I consider you part of the Bridge Collective. We're on the edge of creating something new as structures in the world seem to be falling apart. I don't want everything to fall apart. I'm not one of those people that's like, we need a great reset and then we'll get rid of all the current systems and then it'll just be bliss. It's like, no, I don't think so. I think that will be a lot of suffering. I do think that there's going to need to be some disillusion and deconstruction. I think that what happens in our personal journeys as we like dissent and deconstruct all of our cultural conditioning, I think that what happens in those personal journeys needs to happen with the collective. And I think it is happening. It's just really hard and messy, just like it is inside of us in our own personal journeys. And I think that needs to happen if we're going to figure out a way to be different on the planet. But there are things that we don't get rid of, you know? Every system that exists on the planet right now isn't bad or evil just by virtue of it existing now. You know, we don't get rid of everything. We get clear about things. We look at it. We look at the shadow. We look at our own shadow. We look at the collective shadow. And probably through evolution, through suffering, we look at the suffering, we look at the pain, we look at the injustice, we look at the things that don't work, and we change something. We decide to change because it's too painful. And maybe if we can go through that process, then collectively we can go through evolution through joy. That's my hope, I think. I think that that's what's going on here. I really do. I'm tired of like caveating everything too. I just fucking think that that's what's happening on the planet. And I think there's a bunch of people talking about this in a bunch of different ways. I'm not the only one. This is just how it's coming through my particular body. You know, in 2024, I think that the stakes are just really fucking high. I think that this is where the rubber meets the road. And I think that we're going to have to hold a lot of deconstruction and suffering. And those of us who have the capacity to do it are going to need to show up for that. So we also need to show up for each other and strengthen the collective so that we can lean on that energy, lean on the energy of the collective, get nourished from the collective so that we can hold and help. Again, I don't know if anybody is with me on this. I think so. But yeah, if none of that makes sense to you, don't worry about it. Okay. I am all done with screens and microphones. After I edit this, I'm going to not edit it very much. I'm going to schedule it to come out while I'm in retreat. And when you listen to this, I'll be away from my phone. Hopefully I will be like slipped into some different dimensional space through the grace of primordial time. That would be lovely. I'll probably be like suffering in meditation, which will be lovely also. But I'll be back, of course. And I have some great guests coming up, ones that I'm really excited about. And one of them is going to be the one and only exo-academian Darren King. I've got him on the books and some others that I'm really excited to share with you. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening. If you got this far, I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you for supporting my work. Thank you for taking care of yourselves. Thank you for taking care of other people. Reach out if you need help. Like, we all need help. We're not supposed to do any of this by ourselves. So if you need help, find it. There is a lot of it out there, and we are only going to get through this together, whatever this is. I don't know. Just, if nothing else, just like the fucking experience of being alive. So do that. If you'd like to become a patron, you can find me at patreon.com/Robin Lassiter. Thank you so much to those of you who are patrons and support my work in that way. It means the world to me. Thank you to Morgan Jenks for our beautiful musical soundscapes. And if you would like to learn more about my work or to book a one-on-one session with me, after I get back in mid-March, please visit honeyheart.org.